An Ohio social worker accused of sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy she was supposed to be counseling is now facing more charges after she allegedly threatened the boy's mother. Acclaimed predator catcher Chris Hansen comes back on to discuss. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Let's talk about 24-year-old Peyton Shires, an Ohio social worker, or I should say former Ohio social worker with the National Youth Advocate Program, who was first arrested on October 6th, on her birthday, actually, believe it or not. This happened in Franklin County, Ohio. She was accused of sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy who she was supposed to be acting as his mental health counselor. In fact, the boy's mother had gone to police when she saw all these messages on her son's phone from Shires, and the messages seemed to indicate that she had been asking if his mom had seen any of the videos or images, or if the videos had been deleted. So the mom realized something was off, took a closer look, and she reported Shires to the police. So police actually found a video of Shires and this boy engaging in sexual conduct, and the boy admitted to police that he had sex with Shires multiple times. So what the police did is they kind of set up this sting in a way. They listened into a call between the boy's mom and Shires where she allegedly admitted to the sexual conduct. Shires was arrested. She was charged with unlawful sexual contact with a minor. And my understanding is that is a 4th-degree felony, which can result in up to 6 to 18 months behind bars. It's crazy to think that Shires had just got her license to be a social worker over the summer. Okay, so she was booked into jail, but she was out. She was released on $500,000 bond, and as a condition of her release, she was prohibited from contacting the boy. Well, now you fast forward to Thursday, October 26th. Shires is out, and now according to court documents, she suddenly shows up at the 13-year-old's house with a gun and threatens to kill not only the mom, but herself. Now, the boy's mom wasn't home, but she did receive a call from Shires where she allegedly said that she and her son ruined her life. Shires was apprehended by police at the residence where officers found her on the front porch with a gun to her head, saying that she was going to kill herself. Shires has now been hit with 2 additional felony counts of intimidating a crime victim or witness by force or threat. Her bond has been revoked. Quite a story. Want to bring back in right now Chris Hansen, friend of the show, host of Takedown on TruBlu and the podcast Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. Chris, again, good to see you once more. I wish it was under better circumstances, but another wild case. Overall thoughts on this case and the new development?
Well, Jesse, it's disturbing on many different levels, and thanks for having me again, albeit on a very dark subject. What really bothers me about this particular case is not only did this woman, the social worker, have access to children, not just this young child, this young teenage boy, but others. And then you have to ask yourself the question, did she go into this position knowing that she would have access to underage boys? Was that some sort of a goal of hers? And then to hear this, and I hear this all the time in our predator investigations, you ruined my life. You know, people say that to me. They say that to the police during our sting operations. I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. Don't put this on TV. Well, guess what? You ruined your own life when you made the decision as an adult to exploit a vulnerable child. Now, there's a reason this boy was seeking mental health treatment, and that puts him in a very vulnerable category. And they look up to people, and this woman took advantage of it. And it's just like the case of a police officer we caught in a sting in Michigan, and Todd Baraka. He was not only a police officer, but he had been a parole officer, a juvenile parole officer, a supervisor in high schools, in junior high schools, and had an assistant, supervision role there. And so you have to wonder what happens when these people have contact with children. They go there because they're predators and they want to exploit victims, and they find them as easy prey. The whole thing is horrifying.
Horrifying, and how quickly she got the job to then being arrested, which, by the way, brings me to a statement. This is from the media representative for the National Youth Advocate Program. The statement reads, "Protecting children is everyone's responsibility. The National Youth Advocate Program, or NYAP, is saddened by the situation involving one of our former employees and a young person served by our organization. NYAP has reported the situation to Franklin County Children's Services and is collaborating with them and the Columbus Police Department on this case. What do you make of that? Because I imagine in your career, it's not just people, random strangers who don't have contact with children, and meet them on chat forums or things like that, but
Sure.
people who, as you said, are put in a position to be around children, to take care of children, teachers,
Well,
social workers. And for this statement, because I think the first thing that came to my mind is, how did you hire this person? Were there no red
well,
flags?
yeah, but in defense of the organization, I mean, how many people are really out there? I mean, if you're running this organization and you've got somebody who's educated, who's a young adult, who wants to help kids, what is the red flag? It'll be interesting to me to see if there was anything in this woman's background that should have alerted the organization to a potential problem, but there may not have been. And so, do you look at every applicant for a job like this, an important job like this? There's a shortage of people who want to do this kind of work. Do you look at every applicant as a potential predator? No, this is a rare situation. You have to give people in hiring situations the benefit of the doubt. I understand that. But this, again, it'll be interesting to see if this was a one-off situation between this counselor and this boy, or whether there had been other situations. It sounds like she was a relatively new employee, but it rattles me to my very core when I see a situation like this. And you'll hear all kinds of people come out and say, "Oh, it's a 13-year-old or a teenage boy's fantasy, and
Mm-hmm.
this and that," and it's not. It's illegal. And while some may view it as a fantasy, this young boy has suffered a bit of trauma here.
Yeah.
And now his mother has to cope with the fact that he has been sexually active with an older woman. And how do you counsel him now? I mean, clearly he had issues before, and now he's had this experience, and he's supposed to be a kid who's worried about playing sports and scholastics and video games and all that stuff, and now he's been elevated to this hyper sexualized level. And how do you manage that? And who do you go to after somebody who's supposed to be a professional was administering advice and counsel and ended up committing allegedly a sexual assault? So it creates all kinds of problems. And there's a reason why we have an age of consent in society.
Right.
This isn't a Romeo and Juliet situation. You can talk about, well, he was mature beyond his years, blah, blah, blah. No, 13 is 13.
Yeah.
And
And
that's against the law.
100% right. And I'm glad you mentioned the impact that this not only had on this boy, but also the family in general. And you hear about this frightening situation.
Think about the mother here. And then
The gun on, because she could have been, imagine she was home.
this could have been a murder suicide.
Yeah.
Jesse. And the fact that she had a gun,
Yeah.
What does that tell you? And you're right. Had the mother been home, had the child been home, is it a double murder suicide? It frightens me to think of the possible consequences here, because once these people get caught, and not until they get caught do they often realize, the repercussions of their actions. This isn't just acting out some sort of fantasy by yourself. This is the sexual assault and vicious attack on a child, plain and simple.
And look, so obviously we say it all the time. She's innocent until proven guilty. These are now very serious charges, and she seems to have made the situation worse for herself. I do want to ask you though, and look, the evidence right now, if there's videos and there's the phone call and now this, it's really bad. When you see these cases, and I want to go back to something that you said, obviously there's the dynamic if you have an older male with a young victim, whether a boy or a girl. The dynamic of a young woman with a younger boy, which we're seeing in these kinds of cases, teachers, is that dynamic different? Are the motivation different? I mean, when you deal with that kind of perpetrator victim scenario?
They're still predators. I mean,
Right.
People ask me, Jesse, all the time, do we ever see predators in my current takedown investigations? And the answer is no. And the specialists in this field will tell you that it's because the female predator does not like the anonymity. right? They for the most part, and it's happened, but not in our investigations, but the female predator is more likely to be in a scenario, the teacher student, the therapist student, the tutor student, exactly what we see in this case in Ohio. There's another case going on right now in Tennessee, not far from Memphis, where a teacher's accused of having sex with a teenage boy whose husband is a sheriff's deputy, whose defense lawyer had a child in that class. So these cases are pretty close in. They're shocking, they're damaging, but they do happen. But it's a complete different mindset than the male predator, who oftentimes is excited and enthralled by the anonymity and this possibility of fulfilling the illegal fantasy.
That leads me to why there were these videos and images in the sense, and text messages. If you know what you're doing is illegal and you're engaging in sexual contact with a young boy, why create documentary evidence that could be used against you?
Well, because they can't control themselves in some cases, Jesse. They want this trophy. In virtually every case that we see, and we just did a sting a week ago, there is talk of videotaping the illicit encounter. They know it's risky. They know it's illegal. They know it's harmful to the child. They know that they could go to prison if they're caught. So that's why, if they get this opportunity, they're going to capture it so they can relive it by viewing this video. We had a case in Ohio where a guy with a criminal record walked into one of our sting operations, and while he was out pending further investigation, he is caught in a neighboring community in a hotel room with a real 14-year-old girl, having sex with her and creating a video of the entire event. So here's a guy who not only did prison time for criminal behavior, got caught in one of our stings, and committed a similar crime again, even after having been caught. These people, whether they're male or female, create an obsession and an addiction to fulfilling this criminal fantasy. It's like telling a heroin addict there's a 20% chance, though, there's fentanyl in your heroin. They're going to take that chance.
Yeah.
If you tell a predator there's a 20% chance it's going to be a law enforcement sting, or Chris Hansen is going to be there, they're going to take that chance because they oftentimes can't control themselves.
Were you surprised by the reporting that, again, if it's true, that she admitted to what she did on the phone in this kind of sting operation, where she admitted to the mother that she engaged in sexual conduct with her son? That was, as I mentioned, that was caught on tape by the police.
Right.
Were you surprised that that's true, that she admitted that?
No, I'm not surprised, Jesse,
Yeah.
because we see it in our sting operations all the time. Guys figure they do one of two things. They try to lie their way out of it and convince me that, they were just there to help the child, or to tell them that what they were doing was dangerous and wrong. Or they throw themselves, on the floor and say, well, I know it was wrong, but now you've straightened me out. I'll never do it again. And I'm very sorry. And I realize it was a bad thing. So I think cornered, she probably figured, and, you can't ever really know for sure because you can't get inside this person's mind, but she probably figured, if I appeal to the mother, woman to woman, and apologize, and beg for forgiveness, maybe she's not going to report it to the police. And when the mother did the right thing and reported it, she became very desperate and created this, threatening situation with the gun and the threatened suicide.
Miss Shires, when she was in court on these new charges, reportedly told the judge that I didn't want to kill her. So look, it's just a really, really disturbing account, and we will see where it goes. But Chris Hansen, thanks so much for taking the time. As always, sir, always appreciate it.
All right. See you soon.
All right, everybody. That is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.